The doorbell rang. Just as I was setting 2 plates on the table. Dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets. Lucas's favorite. From the living room, my 4-year-old grandson laughed at his cartoon. That carefree giggle that only comes from a child who doesn't yet know how cruel adults can be. But my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the plates. I already knew who was at the door. The lawyer's email that morning had warned me. They may come today. Be prepared. I wiped my palms on my sweater and walked slowly down the hallway, each step heavier than the last. Through the peephole I saw him. My former son-in-law, Marcus, standing on my porch like a ghost from a life we buried 4 years ago. Beside him stood his mother, the woman who destroyed my daughter's marriage. Even from behind the glass, I could see how much Marcus had changed. Thinner, older, eyes hollowed out by something that looked a lot like regret. 4 years will do that to a person. I rested my forehead against the door and closed my eyes, because before I could face them, before I could decide whether to open that door or slam it shut forever, you need to understand how we got here. How my daughter lost everything. How my grandson grew up without a father. And how one lie, 1 cup of coffee, shattered an entire family. It started 5 years ago, on a quiet spring evening in Oregon, when my daughter called me crying in the hospital parking lot. Not from pain, from joy. "Mom," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm pregnant. I'm really pregnant." And I had no idea then that this miracle would soon become the reason. She would be abandoned, accused, and broken in ways no mother should ever endure. Because the people knocking on my door now were the same people who once walked away when she needed them the most. And what they came to ask for this time would change everything. I opened the door that afternoon. But what Marcus said next made me wish I hadn't. 5 years earlier, I was washing dishes when my phone rang. I remember that moment clearly, because the plate slipped from my hands and shattered in the sink. The instant I heard her voice. "Mom." That was all she said. Not hello. Not how are you. Just mom, stretched thin, trembling. I turned off the faucet and pressed the phone to my ear. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" There was silence on the other end. Then a sound I never forget. Crying. Not loud crying. Not dramatic crying. The quiet kind. The kind that means something inside has already collapsed. "He says the baby isn't his." My knees gave out. I sat down on the kitchen floor, still holding the phone, water dripping onto my socks, the broken plate forgotten beside me. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Who says that?" "Marcus," she whispered. "He says I cheated. He says his mother proved it." Her words came in pieces, as if even saying them out loud hurt too much. A few weeks earlier, she had gone out for coffee with an old coworker. Just coffee. 30 minutes. Public place. She told Marcus about it the same day. Because that's who my daughter was, honest to a fault. But his mother. She saw an opportunity. She planted doubt like poison in his mind. Showed him timelines. Whispered questions. Turned love into suspicion. And when the pregnancy test turned positive, they didn't celebrate. They accused. Marcus demanded a DNA test. My daughter agreed without hesitation. She had nothing to hide. But instead of waiting for the results, he packed a bag. He moved out. And that night, he sent her one message. "Don't contact me again until you prove it's mine." I will never forget what my daughter said next. "Mom, I've never felt so alone." She was pregnant, abandoned, and slowly realizing that the family she married into had already chosen a side, and it wasn't hers. But the worst part wasn't that Marcus left. It was what his mother did next. 2 days later, his mother showed up at my daughter's apartment. No warning, no phone call, just a sharp knock on the door. My daughter told me later. She already knew something was wrong. By the way the knocking sounded. Not gentle. Not hesitant. Authoritative. When she opened the door, there she stood, perfectly dressed, perfectly calm. No concern in her eyes. No softness for the woman carrying her grandchild. She didn't ask how my daughter was feeling. Didn't ask about the baby. She walked straight in, sat down, and crossed her legs. "I'm here to collect Marcus's things," she said, "as well as anything he paid for." My daughter blinked. Collect what? The furniture, the television, the laptop, even the baby items, since we don't yet know if this child belongs to our family. That sentence cut deeper than anything Marcus had said. My daughter tried to explain. Again, she showed her the clinic appointment, the pending DNA test paperwork. But his mother waved it away. You should have thought about consequences before embarrassing my son. Embarrassing. That's the word she used. Then she stood up and did something that still makes my chest tighten. She went into the nursery. The nursery my daughter had spent weeks preparing. The tiny crib, the folded baby clothes, the stuffed rabbit placed gently on the pillow. She picked up the rabbit and set it back down like it meant nothing. I suggest you don't get too attached, she said. Just in case. My daughter didn't cry in front of her. She couldn't. She stood there, hands shaking, one hand resting on her stomach, protecting a life that hadn't done anything wrong. When the movers arrived, they didn't speak to her. They just took, piece by piece, until the apartment felt hollow. When it was over, his mother stopped at the door and turned back. If the test comes back negative, she said, you'll never hear from us again. And then she left. That night, my daughter slept on a mattress on the floor. No couch, no television, no comfort, just silence, and a baby kicking inside her, as if asking where everyone had gone. She called me at 2 a.m. Mom, she whispered, what if they never believe me? I wanted to promise her everything would be okay, but something in my chest told me the truth. This wasn't over. Not even close. Because when the DNA results finally arrived, they didn't do what anyone expected. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Plain. White. No warning. My daughter stared at it for a long time. Before she picked it up, she didn't open it right away. She made tea, sat down slowly, put one hand on her belly. I'm scared, she told me on the phone. Not of the result. Of what happens after. I told her to open it anyway. Paper doesn't lie. People do. When she finally tore it open, her hands were steady. Her heart wasn't. She read it once. Then again. Then she laughed. One short broken sound. Mom, she said. He's the father. Confirmed. Undeniable. Scientific truth printed in black ink. For a moment, there was relief. A soft breath. Like the world exhaled with her. Then came the silence. 3 days passed. No call from Marcus. No apology. No message from his mother. Nothing. On the 4th day, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But she did. And suddenly, the tone had changed. Hello, his mother said. Her voice sweet now. Almost warm. We've seen the results. My daughter said nothing. We'd like to talk, she continued. Calmly. As adults. As adults. After taking everything. After questioning a child's existence. We may have been hasty, she added. Emotions were high. Hasty. That's what she called cruelty. Then Marcus spoke. Soft. Careful. Like someone walking on thin ice. I didn't mean for things to go that far, he said. You know how my mom gets. My daughter closed her eyes. I could hear her breathing through the phone. They wanted to come over. They wanted to discuss next steps. They wanted to be involved. Not because they believed her now, but because the paper forced them to. When the call ended, my daughter didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She looked at the nursery corner, still half empty, and said something I'll never forget. They didn't want my baby until they knew he was theirs. That's when something inside me hardened, because truth didn't make them kind, just made them strategic. And when they finally came back into her life, they weren't asking for forgiveness. They arrived on a Sunday afternoon, too dressed up, too rehearsed. Marcus stood behind his mother, hands in his pockets, eyes lowered, like a boy waiting to be told what to say. She smiled the moment she saw my daughter. Not a real smile, the kind that never reaches the eyes. We brought gifts, she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. A baby blanket, a small box of clothes, neutral colors, nothing personal, nothing chosen with love. They sat at the table, the same table they had once cleared bare. His mother folded her hands neatly. "We want to move forward," she said. "For the sake of the child. Not for you. Not for the pain we caused. Just the child." Marcus finally spoke. "I want to be involved," he said. "I want my family to know their grandchild." My daughter nodded slowly. "And me?" she asked. "What about me?" There was a pause. His mother answered instead of him. "This doesn't have to be complicated," she said. "You can co-parent. We can help financially. You don't need to make this emotional." My daughter looked at her, stunned. Make this emotional? As if being accused, abandoned, and stripped bare, while pregnant, was some kind of overreaction. That's when my daughter stood up. She walked to the drawer, pulled out a folder, set it on the table. Inside were receipts, messages, screenshots, every conversation, every threat, every cruel word saved quietly. "I don't want your help," my daughter said. "I want accountability." His mother's smile vanished. Marcus shifted in his chair. "You should be grateful we're even here," his mother snapped. That was the moment I knew. They didn't come back to fix what they broke. They came back to control the outcome. And my daughter was done being polite, but they had no idea she had already taken a step that would change everything. My daughter didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She simply pushed the folder back toward them. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," she said. "Everything from here on goes through them." Marcus looked up, startled. "What?" he asked. His mother's face tightened. "This isn't necessary," she said quickly. "We're family." My daughter met her eyes. Family doesn't disappear until a test proves something convenient. Silence filled the room. The baby kicked hard, as if agreeing. She explained calmly. "Supervised visitation only. Clear boundaries. No unscheduled visits. No private conversations. And one more thing. The baby will have my last name." Marcus opened his mouth, closed it again. His mother stood up. "You're making a mistake," she said. "You're burning bridges." My daughter didn't flinch. "No," she replied. "I'm protecting my child." They left without another word. No gifts taken back. No apology offered. That night, my daughter sat on the floor of the nursery. The room was still missing things, but it no longer felt empty. Weeks later, a small legal envelope arrived. Support was ordered. Boundaries enforced. No control. No manipulation. Just responsibility. When my grandson was born, Marcus saw him for the first time. In a supervised room, with a social worker present. He cried. My daughter didn't. She had already grieved the man she thought he was. Now she was busy becoming someone stronger. And me? I watched my daughter hold her child, with both fear and courage in her arms. And I realized something. Sometimes the greatest inheritance a mother can give her child is not forgiveness. It's boundaries. If you think walking away is weakness, wait until you see what it builds.